Hey guys, it's Jessie Rhines here, yoga therapist, yoga instructor from Evolutions, and I just got done with a run and wanted to use yoga to cool down and thought I would share with you. I've had a request or two for a good post-workout yoga stretch, in particular for impact on joints. So if you've been running, if you've been hitting a tennis ball against your garage door, pickleball's like a thing now. Pickleball's cool. If you've been slamming a pickleball against a wall, something with impact, this might be helpful for you. Thank you for joining me. What I would recommend is to stay up. So if you're up, if you were up, if you've been up, if you haven't been down for long, I want to get into the calves first. And so I would find a wall, a door, any place where you have a little space. And we're just going to do a very simple stretch where we're getting our toes up and, leaning into it, finding a little pressure, finding a stretch there. So either one, use your breath for this first few rounds, I would recommend, as you come up onto the tippy toes of your other foot and get your hips a little closer to the wall, maybe the head to the wall. And again, I would take a few breaths here, in through the nose and out through the mouth. Let the workout go. Let the day go. Last one. Maybe you can then sink in a little more. You might prefer to have your shoes on for this if it's too much on the heel. If you have carpet or a rug, and that's enough, great. Otherwise, shoes on is fantastic. Maybe socks helps. And little by little, I'm just interested in seeing how close my hips can get to the wall. It doesn't matter if they ever come. I'm interested in seeing how high my toes can get. It's all up to you. It's totally from within. And I would then take just another few breaths to maybe kind of floss a little bit by bringing the weight to one side of the heel and then rolling across to the other. So you might like that movement. You might find a little stickiness somewhere where you want to really hang out, breathe into it. You might prefer stillness. Some days I do. Just really sinking into a static stretch. Let's take one more breath. And then we'll come on out of it. And I would recommend circling that ankle in one direction and then the other. Maybe snap, crackle, pop, like me. Wow. You're welcome to make that a bigger circle, get into the knee if you'd like, or the hip. And then we'll come into the other side, but first, I almost forgot, I really like to feel. So close the eyes and stand and experience. What might you have missed had we just jumped right into the other side? Does one leg feel bigger, warmer, lower, as though it's stepping through the ground? And then we'll come into the other side. So the other foot comes on up. Use care. Sometimes we try to jump right in on this second side to the place that we just jumped out of on the other side, and that will injure you. It took some time, right? 3 breaths. Maybe through the mouth, or maybe as you mellow, you're ready for Ujjayi Pranayama, ocean breath with your lips together. So I like a few breaths just to breathe without movement. There's sort of an intimacy with the wall, you know, like an intimacy with my own closed eyes, an intimacy with myself going in, quieting down, right? And then we might move a little. You can keep the eyes closed for that if you like, kind of the rolling. We took 3 to 4 on the other side. If you lose the stretch when you do this, don't do this, right? Stay with what helps you really stretch. Maybe for you it's more, still. And one more breath. I like to be aware of which one is my last. And then, again, we'll come out. Circle in one direction and in the other. Maybe, again, a little bit of a looser circle at the knee, or even a sense that you feel it in the hip. Close the eyes and feel. It might be that you don't quite feel even, and that would be encouragement to perhaps pause here and go into the side that feels tighter and let yourself eventually even yourself out. We're not as symmetrical as we look. And then we'll get to some stretching. It just occurred to me I want to do one more standing thing here. So let's come into the IT band. So, you know, these abductors, muscles that run along the outside of your legs. In particular, one we talk a lot about is the IT band. Can really be a place to give a little attention to when you've been working with impact, when you've been stepping off of things, or you know, playing, jaunting with your kiddos, you know, flag football or whatever it is, right? So what I'd recommend is let's bring the right foot in front and around so that you're stepping across. And it might be that your pinky toes are really far away from one another. It might be that you can, you know, snuggle them a little closer. That part really doesn't matter. We'll take an inhale to come halfway up. And then exhale, hang out here. So it does not matter how far you come. Your hands can be on blocks or books or anything at all. And we're just letting the head go. We're letting the head hang. I like to clasp my hands behind the neck. That might be too intense. If it's too much traction, no need to do it. A little side to side here might be nice as well. Again, kind of a flossing. And you might notice as you dangle and floss loosely that it feels interesting to start to walk your hands just a little bit to the right. And you might feel something start to talk to you. And I want to encourage you to use the breath now. Either, again, an ocean breath or Ujjayi pranayama. That's the same thing. Either an ocean breath, Ujjayi pranayama, or an exhale through the mouth is actually what I meant to say. I seem to want to alternate those today. I would recommend about 10 breaths. And then let's just rise halfway. I'm not going to have you stand up and feel like I normally would because I want to keep you bent over. So now let's just lift that left leg and float it. I like to float it back and kind of around and around the front, and we come into the same posture. I will encourage that same half lift. Inhale, flat back. Exhale, full. When we've been upside down for a while, we want to be really cautious with how we come up, which is why I didn't encourage you to stand We're gonna just stay. And then when it's time, we'll actually be coming down to the ground. Again, you might like to clasp the hands behind the neck. You might not be able to do that because of balance, that's fine. You might like your hands on the ground, again, on blocks or pillows. If you'd like to traction the neck, but your balance doesn't allow you to, you can always use one hand. That's a really great in-between, kind of a compromise. And again, breathe here. Maybe we walk over to the left. So you might feel this more now in that right hip. Nothing sharp, nothing shooting. Make it intense, but not violent, right? Maybe you feel it more in your side body. I would say 5 more breaths or so. We'll make it 10. I like to shake my head out. And then from here, my friends, again, we're just going to step that back foot. So it's right foot back. And it's kind of maybe like a flying warrior. You can go as high as you want or slow as you want. It really doesn't matter. I like to do these big circles, but certainly you don't have to. The feet can come to the ground then. And then I'd like for you just to bring your shins to the earth and perhaps closing eyes or keeping eyes closed. Whew. Come up to a seat, but don't miss the upward rebound. The upward moving energies, we call those prana. Might be swirling or tingling or creating a sense of sort of an effervescence up, bubbles up. Sometimes people see all kinds of colors depending on which energy center is releasing more. It can be a really beautiful thing to pay attention to all that. Oh man. And then I'll encourage us to come into a hamstring stretch. So I will say dangling pose is an option here. So what you would do is actually come back up and let yourself hang. The other option I'm gonna go ahead and teach first because I know a lot of folks prefer it and you're already down. It would just be what we call caterpillar posture. So it's just a simple hamstring stretch. We let the legs go long. I would encourage reaching up and then coming over and down to feel those hamstrings. The head can hang here. It might take a few breaths. To settle. The head might be hanging very far from the shins. The forehead might be against the shins. It couldn't matter less, that part, right? Doesn't matter. It couldn't matter less. Doesn't matter if you can touch your toes. It's funny how people seem to think that's a better thing. There's just as much risk with over flexibility as there is with over tightness, being more muscle bound. So be in your body. Be grateful for your body. What body do you have? Be grateful for anything it's done for you today. If this does not feel like enough and you want to pull a little bit, you can certainly do that. If this doesn't feel like enough and you want more traction for your back or more hanging of the head, then it might be that you go ahead and come back up to dangling pose. Now, for dangling, you're basically in the same exact shape, right? Hands could be on the floor, hands could be on blocks, hands could grapevine to the opposite side. You might swing, right? And you're just going to be here for these 3 minutes. It might be that you like dangling pose, but you do not feel particularly stable or safe hanging like this. You feel like you might fall over, like you're going to sway, right, into danger. If that's the case, I would encourage you to simply walk your buns right up against a wall. A foot, maybe half a foot, your call, between the baseboard and your heels, and just lean on back. And you're going to get such a great stretch this way. I think it actually increases the stretch a little bit. You don't want to be
straightening your knees on purpose. You want to have a little softness through the knees, but that said, if you soften them too much, you'll come all the way out of the stretch, right? So find the sweet spot. And let yourself hang out. Now for those of you, a small population, I would say, that feel like this is still not enough, you might like the reverse. So what we do is we come into dangling posture the other way around, and I'm going to walk my upper back against that wall, and this is quite a stretch. This may or may not be what works for you. This is to intensify the posture. You might like a little movement wherever you are, right? You might like a little sway. Know that there are not just one, there is not just one hamstring running along the back of your leg. There's 4 of them on each side, and so you might want to sort of find a little bit of that flossing side to side if you want to get into them more. And it's also true that perhaps just fully surrendering now is where it's at for you, really letting movement go at this point. Let's breathe. Maybe you have some favorite meditative music playing. Maybe you prefer silence to hear the sound of your breath. Just I'll say another 10 breaths or so. By now I would be encouraging of you to let go of exhales through the mouth. Assuming you've taken out enough trash, so to speak. Sometimes we need that, we need a sigh. No problem at all. Please listen to the body when it surrenders a sigh. But you might really start to go in now, and by now we're using an ocean breath, Ujjayi Pranayama, constricting the throat. With the lips together, you still hear that little squeeze of the throat. One more breath. And then, if you're in dangling, I want you to stay really folded to come down. You might like a child's pose. Just ground, because so much of you was away from the ground just now. If you were in caterpillar pose, right, you can just very, very, very slowly come up. And then I'll recommend that you do that same thing, that you cross at the ankles and come over to hands and knees, part those feet, get your knees as wide as you'd like, and slide on down into child's pose. You're welcome to have your arms stretched forward, start to really get into that shoulder girdle pretty actively if you'd like, really pulling your fingertips or hands along the mat. Or you could be softer, looser. You could even let those hands come around. I totally remember sleeping like this as a kid. I really do. I remember falling asleep on the floor once like this. And my parents asking why I had gotten out of bed in the morning to come to the floor to sleep like this. I wonder what my answer was, because I felt like it. My body chose, Mom. My body chose, Dad. So this is a transitional pose. You can certainly pause and stay longer. 3 minutes is kind of our yin minimum. I always joke that it's the yinimum. Because it takes about 90 seconds on average for blood to trickle through muscular tissue. And so we want another 90 seconds
for the deeper connective tissues, tendon, ligament, and deep fascia, to receive the blood as well. It oxygenates and it brings chi, energy. That said, for now, I want to get us into our inner thighs. So I want you to lean on back and bring the soles of the feet together and come right on down. Now those are kind of counter poses to one another, so you might appreciate coming in and out of it. I notice my one hip wants me to do that, coming up and down. I would recommend an inhale to rise you, eyes can close, exhale to fold you. You could keep moving like this. Maybe you're choosing to watch this video just to wake up in the morning and not to cool down. You can certainly, get a little energy moving, slow, therapeutic. I love that. It's a great idea. Or maybe it's like a work break, getting off the Zoom calls for a minute. Or maybe at some point you really feel like, no, I'm ready to walk my hands out. Maybe forearms come to the ground, doesn't matter if they do or don't. Maybe the head hangs, maybe it comes low, matters not. And rest. I'd like you to now focus on your breath. I'm going to say less. I'd like you to focus on inhales that are very, very full. Reach capacity, stretch from the inside. And then exhales that are so slow because you have that little constriction at the throat like an hourglass. Really, it's the same thing as except your lips are together. And I'd like you to go all the way to empty. So you get every last drop of air out. And you just repeat. Feel it all. Try to feel more than you think. The longer you stay, the more these very thin layers of fascia will just release just even a little bit. So that the blood can go deeper. You might decide at some point things got too intense and you're resisting, in which case you just back out a little bit. You might decide at some point, oh, there's been a release and I can drop a little more. Not forcing, but dropping. And that will probably happen on its own. I would encourage you not to push. Let's do another 8 breaths. And after your 8th, or what you think is your 8th, you can come on up. Ooh-wee. Oof. And I would recommend the feet coming to the mat here. Coming out of a yin pose is intense, right? Or I'll say if it's intense, that's normal and okay. And it's the feeling of blood coming back into a moving muscle after being, in a deeper place. You're gonna take these little side to sides, these little windshield wipers, and then I'd like to get us into the shoulder girdle, into the shoulders, into the upper body to end. So I think I may lay across my mat here to demonstrate. We're going to come to our belly. So let's bring ourselves to the floor, facing down. And I actually would like to start with our left hand, so I'll mirror you. That's because I write with my right hand. So really what I'm saying is choose your non-dominant side. I'd like for you to choose your non-dominant side. And let that arm come straight out like an airplane wing away from your body, and the other hand is going to press into the mat or floor. And notice you don't even need a yoga mat for what we're doing today, right? You're going to start to roll onto that side, your non-dominant side, and really feel that you're stretching through that shoulder. You might keep the opposite hand where it is, kind of active, if that makes you feel safer, or you might be able to relax that arm. And then as for the lower body, I'd like for you to do whatever is most helpful. So I'll demonstrate on my side now. Whatever feels like it's letting you let go. So some of you like to bend one knee and turn it up to the sky. Some of you, super bendy folks, like to bend both knees. That feels like too much in my own body. You might like to experience more of kind of just a fetal position, just, snuggling or laying in a relaxed posture. Some of you will like a bolster between your knees or a bolster under the bottom knee. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that you've chosen something that allows you to focus on that shoulder. You can play, right? But whatever it is that kind of lets you relax and let go. Sometimes I want one of my legs straight. It sort of acts as counterbalance, leverage somehow. But I'm not being active through this straight leg. Everything I'm doing is in service to my shoulder. Be very, very careful here. Obviously, our arms are smaller than our legs. These muscles are smaller. We are moving gently. And again, just allowing ourselves to sink in, to let go, especially with the exhales. Letting go of holding, letting go of tension, letting go of doing, sinking in. Knowing that you're made of so many layers, more layers than an onion has, that's for sure. And you're just going to keep working through it. What I'll recommend next is to switch to the other side, where we're going to stay a little bit longer, because as your dominant side, it's tighter. It needs a little more time. Let's take 3 more breaths here. And what I'd like you to do is slowly roll out. Eyes can be closed. Come back to your belly. Arms can come long along your hips or under your forehead. Whatever feels good. I'd like for you to notice the differences from side to side. And then we're just going to do that on your dominant side. So you're sending your arms straight out, again, like an airplane wing, and the other hand presses into the mat so that you can roll your body. And I'll face you so I can talk to you.
And I'll say less on this side. Again, we're going to be here for just a little bit longer. Let's start to really use this as our meditation time. Meaning that you're just simply aware of breathing in and aware of breathing out, more than being married to any thoughts. Let thoughts come and go without the attachment that we normally find. Just try to focus on the in and the out breath, and that might dominate your awareness. If you notice you're thinking and you let it go, all you do is kindly return. Long, slow breath. Almost there. And taking your last 3 breaths, please. To then really slowly, maybe with the eyes closed, roll out. Again, face down or face to the side, and just feel. And then I'll actually encourage you to stay here for a bit. This is a downward facing Shavasana, Adho Mukha Shavasana. And it's the most grounding of all the postures that we have at our disposal. So if you feel like grounding would be good, moving into the earth, preparing for bed, moving away from anxiety, slowing the thoughts, this is a really great choice. You can make it work with your head to the side or your hands under your forehead, whatever works for you. Sometimes I'll even like to kind of snuggle my arms underneath my chest. Again, kind of like a kiddo. And just feel held by the earth. Many of you will prefer to flip yourselves over and find a more traditional Shavasana. Palms facing the sky, back along your mat. Feet falling out, hips open. Taking, in either case, as many cleansing breaths as you'd like to help you to gather any tensions that remain in the body. And let them go. And then I'd like for you to allow yourself to be. So you've been doing, and before that you were doing, and before that you were doing and doing and doing, and now I want you just to be. Allow yourself to drift into a space that's perhaps
mostly awake but not quite, or awake but limitless. I'll sign off slowly, quietly, so that you can rest in Shavasana for as long as you'd like. And I just thank you so much for being with me. Thank you for sharing your practice with me. Thank you for sharing your requests with me. It means that I too am less alone, and for everything that I give, I also receive. May this practice be meaningful. May this practice bear fruit. And may the fruits of our practice benefit all beings everywhere. The light in me honors the light in you.